welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. We love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful April the 28th, 2021. Rondo Deportes, bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're settled here in the south, and everything is moving up in the northeast. Everybody's getting ready in Cleveland for the NFL draft tomorrow night, and President Biden is going to have his first speech in front of joint session of Congress tonight. Everybody's moving along in the U.S. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders. I'm sure they'll be listening to the president tonight and have their eyes on Cleveland tomorrow.
Cleveland, this is for you. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars never stop arriving. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at us to a picture. Man, everybody's pausing. The president's going to actually challenge the NFL draft. It's all fair, love, and war, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline, Big C. They are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, I'm hoping that our veterans will be an integral part of the president's speech tonight as he addresses Congress and about what they need to do to help those great service members out, Charlton, after they try to assimilate back into society. Unfortunately, we lose over 2 dozen a day to a horrific disease called suicide. I know everybody's concerned about the COVID-19 vaccine and how that's progressing along, Charlton, but we also need to be concerned about the health and welfare of our great veterans that have served this country. There's no vaccine on the horizon for suicide, Charlton. It becomes an American issue, a worldwide issue.
That's right.
And we all need to pay attention to the signs that lead people to go off that cliff. Many of our service members, Charlton, have been hurting emotionally, financially, physically. And we got to find a way to recognize those signs to get them away from where they are. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, but all Americans need to pay attention to their plight.
Very well said. I think a lot more people are. I'm starting to see that message more and more. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the Home Run King Barry Bonds. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping to put people back to work, just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, sports teams are doing it, watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Big C, I know that President Biden is doing a good job trying to get the country vaccinated, trying to get the country back on its feet. I think they're even trying to pass. It's a stimulus package for people who have fallen through the cracks. It would give poor families about $3,000 for the next 12 months, and it may be something he can also sign to make an executive order, Big C. Some people don't like that. Poor kids may get a chance to breathe, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, welcome to Republican America, Charlton. They're not about equality. It was proven during Donald Trump's presidency that they're not looking for equal rights amongst all Americans.
Yeah, that's a shame. You're going to tell people, we don't want to feed kids. What are they going to do if they got full bellies? And then they say, please join our party. It's all fair and level war. Really appreciate it. Everything comes with resistance. It's always going to come with resistance, Big C. I know people are getting ready to the big night in Cleveland, as the great LeBron James said. Cleveland, this is for you. A lot of good young football players getting the chance very soon to see their dreams come true, Big C. But I want to tell all of you NFL owners, everybody looking for that one shiny moment, that diamond in the rough, NFL draft universe, Big C. When you think about it, since 1966, more NFL quarterbacks have come from California at 141 quarterbacks than any other state, Big C. The second state is Texas. So sometimes when you think about where can we find a good quarterback, look to California before they all go down to Alabama, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they may have grown up in California, but they left California to get better college tutelage and attended universities elsewhere in the United States to catapult themselves to the NFL.
Yeah, sometimes they just go for the paper bags. Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. What attracted Dorothy to Kansas? It was the paper bags for Dorothy, Big C. It wasn't about fighting the Wizard of Oz. It's all fair, love, and war. But when you think about it, there's a good old boy by the name of Teddy Bridgewater. I thought Teddy Bridgewater had more respect than what they're showing him. The Carolina Panthers just sent him packing to Denver. Might not be a bad thing, though. Denver, if they get their defense back, they'll be okay. They sent him over to the Denver Broncos, Big C. I guess he wasn't good enough to stay in Carolina. They wanted to bring in a guy that throws more interceptions than touchdowns, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, in sending Teddy Bridgewater to the Denver Broncos, Charles, you have to look at the offensive weapons that are going to be around him. Denver has one of the young, brighter receiving corps in the NFL. They have a great tight end also, and they've rebuilt their offensive line.
Yeah.
So if they can stay healthy on defense, they can easily finish second in the West behind the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep. I think with it, if they just look at what Elway has with a mobile quarterback, Big C, and realize, you know, don't slow this guy down and try to make him become a stand in the pocket until you get sacked quarterback, and let him play the way he's able to play. I think we're going to see a lot of good things out of the great touchdown Teddy Bridgewater. Also down in Tampa, you know, there's a movie called Groundhog Day back in the day, and it looks like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're just signed for another year wide receiver Antonio Brown, Big C. It's as if they have the whole team back that won the Super Bowl last year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they pulled a Blues Brothers act, Charlton. They brought the band back together. All 22 starters from last year's Super Bowl team will kick off the 2021 season for Tampa, hopefully, if everyone's healthy.
Yeah, if everyone's healthy. It's amazing when people look at what can a couple of good years in a system do for you, and Tampa's trying to reload. They're not trying to make it a one, like the Blues Brothers came back for one act. I don't know if they made Blues Brothers 2. If they didn't, it wasn't as good as Blues Brothers 1. But Tampa Bay's trying to do Blues Brothers 2, if that makes sense to you, and it's going to be a very good team. Big C, I want to get into what everybody is talking about in Cleveland, ranking the 5 best NFL draft picks of all time, Big C. At the number 2 spot in the first round, everybody's focused on who's going to go first. Like, who's on first? It doesn't matter who's on first. What matters is who gets it done. Ranking the 5 best NFL draft picks of all time at the number 2 spot for the first round. In the spirit of another rookie class, Big C, entering the league, here at the Big C Sports decided to take a dive into history to identify the best second picks of the first round. We're going to be exploring the best of the go-to number 2 overall this year, the New York Jets. They hold that pick, Big C. Think about this guy that's part of the greatest show on turf, Big C. Number 5, the great running back Marshall Faulk out of San Diego State, 1994 NFL Draft Round 1. Number 2, the San Diego State Aztecs. They really love what he did to them on their program. He was drafted by the Colts, Big C, 94 through 98. He played there. And then he went to become part of the greatest show on turf, 1999 to 2006. But at that time, Big C, it was the St. Louis Rams. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Marshall Faulk was an individual of his own making, Charlton. One of the most dynamic running backs in the history of the NFL. When you think about his accomplishments, not just running the football, but also receiving the football, Charlton, a multi-purpose back who was once the league's MVP and very difficult for defensive coordinators to deal with.
Yeah, very difficult. He had 1,000-yard rushing and receiving in the same season. Roger Craig did that with the 49ers, who came out of Nebraska earlier than that. But it's all fair and level where a bunch of Hall of Fame caliber running backs have come from the number 2 spot. And when you think about it, Big C, be it the Cowboys' great Tony Dorsett that came out of Pitt, at the same time, 3-time Bears champion George McAfee, or electrified Rams legend, maybe the best of them all, the great Eric Dickerson, out of LSU with all those paperbacks floating around down in Dallas. Big C, he did his thing. The great Eric Dickerson, he and the Pony Express, but none of them, however, produced quite like Marshall Faulk. Big C, I'm going to call him Marshall Touchdown Faulk. There's a case to be made that Dickerson, he was a superior running back, perhaps. I know he was faster, with the better pure running abilities. But touchdown Marshall Faulk, Big C, in his heyday, as a multi-purpose nightmare directed, contributed to the greatest show on turf. And that brought the franchise 2 Super Bowl bids and 1 trophy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Marshall Faulk, he made the greatest show on turf operate.
Yeah.
You think about him early in his career with the Indianapolis Colts. They were traded so that they could draft Ezra and James out of Miami.
That's
Ezra
right.
and James worked out to be an all-pro running back for the Colts, and he fit their system well. But Marshall Faulk, with his move to the Rams, Charlton, was a perfect fit for the scheme of offense that Mike Martz was running, and he fit perfectly, Charlton. He exploited defenses better than any running back probably in NFL history, with his speed coming out of the backfield, Charlton, and his pass-catching hand.
He could also cut on a dime, Big C. The great Marshall Faulk, 19,154 career yards from scrimmage, Big C, ranked 5th all-time behind, when you think about it, the great touchdown Jerry Rice, Emmitt Smith, the NFL rushing leader, the great sweetness Walter Payton, and then Frank Gore, who's still lacing up his shoes, Big C, 12,279 career rushing yards, ranking 12th all-time, and his 136 career touchdowns ranked 7th. In other words, he's easily one of the best to ever do it from behind the quarterback. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's no doubt about the productivity of this young man, Charlton. Marshall did it all. I mean, you know, when he walked on the field, it was Marshall, and it wasn't the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's a good thing. See, it wasn't the Brady Bunch, but he was running that thing. It's amazing when you think about it. The 2000 NFL MVP. When you think about it, a rare combination for a non-quarterback to get that award, Big C. 3 Offensive Player of the Year awards, 7 Pro Bowls, and most importantly, a Lombardi Trophy and all the bonuses of a resume that got him into the 2011 Hall of Fame induction. It's amazing with the way he ran the ball that he did not play college football at USC, went down to San Diego State, put them on the map, and then did his thing in the NFL, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he didn't want to end up on probation in college, so he went down to San Diego State and set their all-time leading rushing record, Charlton, knowing that he would get into the first round of the NFL draft without having any excess baggage.
That's not right, Big C. That's not fair. It's not like he was going to go to SMU. It's all for another war. The great Marshall Faulk. There's another good old boy. He played defense, Big C. Defensive tackle Randy White, 1975 NFL draft. Round 1, number 2, out of Maryland, Big C, played for the Dallas Cowboys. That's when they had the great Ed Too Tall Jones, also cast in the shadow, from 75 to 1988. Before the days of Vince Wilfork and Ndamukong Suh, Big C, and the great Aaron Donald, there was a guy by the name of Randy White out of Texas, Big C, played for the Cowboys, a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 9-time first-team All-Pro. Randy White, when you think about his first snap as a starter, it coincided with the start of a 6-season stretch that saw the Cowboys appear in 5 NFC Championship games before Jerry Jones even thought about football. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Randy White, Charlton, one of the most dynamic defensive tackles in NFL history, you talk about athletic. The Dallas Cowboys drafted him. He was a linebacker at the University of Maryland, Charlton, and converted him to a defensive tackle with his strength and speed.
Yep.
And when you think about his accolades playing with the Cowboys, Charlton, John Madden nicknamed him the Manster because he was so dominant.
Yeah. The great John Madden called him a lot of things, and Super Bowl champion was one of them. His debut season as a first-teamer earned with co-Super Bowl MVP honors thanks to his efforts in Dallas, the Super Bowl 12 Big C over the Dallas. I mean, they beat up on the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl Big C. I still remember how dominant Randy White was. Wasn't as fast as some of the linebackers now, but when he got you in his sights, he always made the closing tackle Big C. When you think about this, the only thing that got better from there, White missed more than one game, just one time Big C over the ensuing 11 seasons, appearing in 2 more Super Bowls and unofficially racking up more than 100 sacks. And he did it on that bad turf down there in Dallas, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about a defensive lineman, Charlton, running a 4.6 40 as Randy White did. He was co-MVP in the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos down in New Orleans, along with defensive line mate Harvey Martin, who that duo became only the second become the defensive MVP in the Super Bowl, Charlton. Chuck Howley did it in Super Bowl IV for the Dallas Cowboys. But this man was a man amongst boys. He never saw a game that he didn't like, Charlton. Tenacity from the first snap to the last snap of the game.
Yeah, that good boy was doing his thing. How about them Cowboys? He was how about them Cowboys before the great Jimmy Johnson said, how about them Cowboys? All fair and love and war the great Randy White, Big C, 100 sacks. Number 3 on that list. And again, people want to know who's on first, who's on second, the old baseball metaphor. Number 3, Big C, quarterback Sid Luckman, 1939, NFL Draft Round 1. Number 2, out of Columbia, Big C, played for the Bears from 1939 to 1950. Chicago boasted one of the NFL's most transcendent arms, Big C. But in retrospect, Luckman passed either superstar size, 6 feet, 197 pounds, nor comparatively godly numbers, had 137 career touchdowns versus 132 interceptions. So he was like what on the path of Jameis Winston, what he was doing before he got the eye surgery, Big C. But what if you think about it, if we told you he was also an NFL MVP, 6-time All-Pro, and best of all brought 4 different championships to the city of Chicago, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the guy who played before the highlight reel era. Sid Luckman is still renowned as the greatest quarterback to ever lace up a Bears uniform. Most people remember Jim McMahon winning the 85 Super Bowl with the Bears, but his numbers were paltry compared to what Sid Luckman did, bringing 4 championships to that city. He played in an era when television wasn't abundant for pro football, but he was the most dominant Bears quarterback ever. And think about that. He played at Columbia University out of the Ivy League.
Yeah, out of the Ivy League into the Windy City. Windy not because it's cold, windy because of his politics, and he brought in 4 championships, Big C, is all fair and level, where he started just 7 games in each of his first 2 seasons, then became a league-wide sensation with an NFL best completion percentage in 1941, and 3 years of leading the NFL in yards and touchdown passes, including a career best 28 in 1943, Big C. All of this, as well as Super Bowl titles, 1940. If they had the pre-Super Bowl titles, 1940, 41, 43, and 1946, despite off-the-field service with the United States Merchant Marine during World War II, he was doing his thing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, you think about that era, Charlton, when we look at professional athletes, and so many of them lost a couple years of their professional career because they went and served in the armed forces to protect America, Charlton, but they also had the ability to come back and serve their teams that they had left behind and keep propelling them on to championships as Luckman did.
Yeah, one of those veterans. We always say we pay how much to our military veterans. Not only did he do a lot of great things in the NFL, but he did serve this country. Always give another mark of a good guy when it comes to that, Big C. Number 2 on the list, the great defensive end, Julius Peppers. He sacked everything in his sight, Big C, in 2002. NFL Draft Round 1, number 2. Out of North Carolina, Big C. When you think about the teams played with the Panthers, 2002 to 2009, 2017 to 2018 played with the Bears, 2010 to 2013 the Packers, and 2014 to 2016. When you think about his size, the guy was 6'7", nearly 300 pounds, coming out of a school, a long-time Panther star, also the only player, Big C, of this list with the entire season, without his whole career, without a championship, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, you talk about a player, Charlton, with freakish athletic skills, and that's Julius Peppers.
Yep.
This is a guy who played on the University of North Carolina basketball team. that shows his athletic ability, Charlton, how he would raise havoc on offensive tackles in the NFL. And being 6'7", 300 pounds, Charlton, and having the tenacity and the agility that he possessed as an athlete, he was just...
All right, Big C. I think he was just second our phone lines too, Big C. It's all fair level war. Go right ahead with the great Julius Peppers, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the greatness of Julius Peppers, Charlton, this is a man who played with 3 teams in Carolina, Chicago, and Green Bay. In each one of those teams, Charlton, he had dual-digit sack seasons with both of them. Just a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, he did his thing without winning the championship, but he played like a champion. And when you think about it, Big C, only 3 other players in NFL history have logged more sacks than the great Julius Peppers. That's the great Bruce Smith, Big C. That's the great Reggie White, the Minister of Defense. And the great Kevin Green, Big C. They all are on that list with him, Big C, with 159.5 for his career. He still stands tall above icons like Michael Strahan, Jason Taylor, Big C, DeMarcus Ware, Richard Dent, Jared Allen, and even the number 1 player on the list at that time. That's part because he was so good for so long, I think people maybe took it for granted. A 6-time All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Decade honoree, and then the great Peppers hit double-digit sacks 6 times in Carolina before totaling 37.5 takedowns in 4 years. Chicago 25.5 in 3 years. In Green Bay another 16, with his final 2 years being back with the Panthers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about those other players that you named that out-sacked him in the NFL, this means he has a surefire path to Canton and putting on a yellow jacket.
He's going to put on a yellow jacket the way he's putting hands around quarterbacks at all fair and love and war. Big C, I don't know about you, but everybody wants to know who's going to be number 1. Who's going to be the first pick? But I don't know if have you ever been around a wild pack of dogs, Big C? You ever been around a wild pack of dogs?
Well, I try to avoid the neighborhood, though.
Try to avoid the neighborhood. Lawrence Taylor, number 1, Big C, he said we want to come out like a wild pack of dogs, and I guess he knew what he was talking about. When you think about Lawrence Taylor, 1981 NFL Draft Round 1, number 2, North Carolina, Big C, went to the Giants, made that defense great. 1981 to 1993, when you think about the great Lawrence Taylor, they called him LT, Big C. That's all you had to do. Where's LT? We're going to run the ball the other way. Where do you even want to begin? You don't even have to be a diehard NFL fan to recognize the name LT. It's a defining figure in the 1980s in the NFL, as well as in Giants history in general, Big C. The first NFL player to ever win Defensive Player of the Year honors as a rookie, Big C. Taylor came raging out of the gate in 1981, looking like a wild pack of dogs, Big C.
Well, like his fellow alumnus, Julius Pepper, Charlton, he raised havoc on offensive tackles and quarterbacks in the NFL throughout his career. He was a staple where people had to make adjustments offensively to wherever he lined up because he was uncontainable. Yeah,
he was like a wild pack of dogs. He told you what he was. He's a wild pack of dogs, and that's really how he played. He played with reckless abandon, Big C. LT went 7 straight seasons, 7 straight, Big C, from 1984 to 1990, with double-digit sacks, including the career-high 20.5 in 1986, 2 more Defensive Player of the Year honors, as well as 10 Pro Bowls and 10 All-Pro honors, a 1986 MVP award, and 2 Super Bowl titles, confirmed him as a legend not only in New York City, but across the whole NFL universe, in my opinion, Big C. But Taylor's the best number 2 pick of all time, not solely because of his production. The Big Blue Wrecking Crew would secured a pair of Lombardi trophies. I love the fact that Lawrence Taylor, like a lot of people in life, everybody goes through challenges. But when he was on that field, he played like a wild pack of dogs, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there's never enough accolades to describe Lawrence Taylor. He was a man's man when it came to football, Charlton. He did all there was asked to do of him when he was on the field of play. He was still, and is still today, the greatest outside linebacker in NFL history.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when you think about how many great players the NFL has seen, everybody wants to know who's going to be drafted number 1, who's going to be drafted number 2. It doesn't matter where you're drafted. What matters is when you get your chance, And when he got his chance, Big C, and even going back to North Carolina was never really a national power. They were always trying to just be respectable in their own conference in the ACC, Big C. Could you imagine how good it would have been had he played down at the U in Miami the way them good boys were playing back in the day, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, back in those days, North Carolina used to thump Miami. You got to realize they had better athletes in North Carolina at that time, but it was a conference that really did not get a lot of spotlight on television.
Yeah, didn't get a lot of spotlight on TV. The great Lawrence Taylor, LT, maybe the greatest linebacker in the history of the NFL universe. It's all fair in love and war, and I'm telling you, there's a lot more going on when you go over to the South, Big C. We talk about some of the bigger marquee programs, but kind of in the backdrop of some of these great players in these big-time Division I Power 5 universities, Big C, I want to look at some HBCUs that if NBC Sports is smart, they've lost everybody. They've lost every sport that people want to watch. There's a golden nugget in the backyard just south of New York City where NBC Sports is. It's called the HBCUs, Big C. They could be the marquee network that will broadcast HBCU football, and there's a reason they should do it, Big C. 11 HBCU players who changed the NFL game. Wouldn't that be amazing if NBC Sports was prescient enough to be the next vanguard that showcased some of these players? Quarterback, the great touchdown, Doug Williams. He played at Grambling State, Big C. Your thoughts?
Doug Williams is looked at the godfather of black quarterbacks in the NFL, Charlton. He is the first to win a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP.
5 touchdowns.
And also the first black quarterback to be taken number 1 overall in the NFL draft.
Yep, you hear that, NBC Sports? Also, Big C. His name is the quarterback Steve Air McNair. He came out of Alcorn State, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Steve McNair, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, Charlton, he was taken in the 3rd overall pick by the Houston Texans. They picked at the Houston Oilers, Charlton,
yep,
who became the Tennessee Titans. And you think about even in his final year in the NFL with Baltimore, Charlton, he was 13-3 as they started in his final year and made 1 Super Bowl appearance with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, he was doing his thing. NBC Sports, you want to know why you should cover the HBCUs? There's a receiver that came out of the HBCU known as the best receiver in the history of the NFL universe. His name is Flash 80. His name is Jerry Rice, Big C. He came out of Mississippi Valley State, and last I heard, he was still catching touchdowns, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, this was a young man who grew up catching bricks from his dad, Charlton, and ended up catching touchdowns and passes from Joe Montana and Steve Young and a host of other quarterbacks, Charlton. Yep. Ended up being the NFL's all-time greatest receiver.
Yep, all-time greatest receiver. Even the great Rich Gannon had the luxury of throwing touchdowns to Jerry Touchdown Rice when he played for the Oakland Raiders. There's another reason why NBC Sports should cover the HBCUs. Big C, you ever have sweetness added to your coffee? The name Walter Payton, known as Sweetness, came out of Jackson State. Say no more, Big C, your thoughts.
You know, Walter Payton has epitomized Charlton professionalism in the NFL and character. This man was overlooked by many people, Charlton. He was drafted 4th overall out of Jackson State and became the NFL's all-time leading rusher.
All-time leading rusher. Wouldn't it be sweet if NBC Sports were to showcase HBCU football? This is another man who never saw a quarterback he didn't want to sack. The great defensive end, Michael Strahan, out of Texas Southern. That's another great reason that NBC Sports should highlight HBCU football. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, when you think about this guy, Charlton, he's hosted a couple Super Bowl trophies. He holds a single-season sack record in the NFL. He's hosting all type of shows on television.
Yeah.
And he's in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah. You hear that, NBC Sports? A lot of these guys we've talked about, they happen to be in the Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of networks that want to overlook them. Wouldn't that be amazing if you were prescient enough to showcase HBCU football on NBC Sports? Big C. There's another quarterback that we talk about all the time, but I want to tell you who they tried to avoid. Defensive back, Darrell Green, Texas A&I. He's also a reason that NBC Sports should highlight the HBCUs. Big C, your thoughts?
Coming out of college, Charlton, at the Combine, he clocked the fastest time of any defensive back at a 4.21.
Yeah.
Darrell Green played 20 seasons at cornerback in the NFL. Think about that. 20 seasons at 5'9", Charlton. Not only that, he's toting around 3 Super Bowl rings.
3 Super Bowl rings. You hear that, NBC Sports? There's another reason, Big C. Sometimes you just got to go where guys work out a lot. He's a tight end. His name is Shannon Sharp out of Valdosta State. That's another reason that NBC Sports should highlight HBCU football, Big C? Your thoughts?
You know, this guy was a success everywhere he played. Charlton started off his career in the Mile High City in Denver, picked up a couple Super Bowl rings, wanted to migrate east and have some crab cakes out there in Baltimore, picked up another Super Bowl ring. Charlton, when he retired from the NFL, he was all-time leading receiver from the tight end position, and he also wears a yellow jacket just like all the men we've mentioned in front of him.
Yeah, it's amazing. More TV networks, when the door was open, they didn't have the prescience to go cover those athletes, Big C. Another great receiver, NBC Sports. The great Bob Touchdown Hayes out of Florida A&M. He's still running past people, Big C. Your thoughts?
Bullet Bob Hayes, Charlton, was the fastest man in pro football when he came out of college, Charlton. Won an Olympic gold medal in the 100 meters in Tokyo. Came to the Dallas Cowboys, Charlton, and blew away defensive backs. Averaged over 20 yards of reception when he entered the NFL.
Yep.
He's also in the Hall of Fame wearing a couple Super Bowl rings. The late Bob Hayes.
The late Bob Hayes, Big C. At the same time, nobody knows where this conference is. It's amazing how so many people can let these golden nuggets get away. Wide receiver, the great Charlie Joyner. He came out of Grambling State. The great Eddie Robinson mentioned him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlie Joyner went on to the Cincinnati Bengals, Charlton. At the time when he left that organization, he was their all-time leading receiver. He finished up his career in San Diego with Eric Coryell and Dan Fouts, Charlton. He matriculated his way to the NFL Hall of Fame. One of the greatest receivers to play for two different teams in NFL history.
One of the greatest to ever play. Big C, offensive tackle, Art Shell, Maryland, Eastern Shore. That's another reason why NBC Sports should highlight the HBCUs, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, this is a guy, Charlton, that was fortunate enough, like many of these others, to hold 3 Super Bowl Lombardi trophies, Charlton. Not only that, he was a perennial All-Pro with the Oakland Raiders.
Yep.
Think about that. He became the first modern-day African-American head coach in the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah, it's amazing, Big C. Final one before we get on the Big C pause. I know NBC Sports is listening why you should cover the HBCUs. Middle linebacker, Willie Lanier, came out of the great Morgan State, Big C. Your thoughts?
You think about Willie Lanier when he came out of college, Charlton, out of Morgan State. The Kansas City Chiefs drafted Jerry Mays out of Notre Dame in the first round. Willie Lanier in the 4th round. In training camp, Willie Lanier became the first African-American starting middle linebacker in the NFL, Charlton. Not only that, he became the first African-American middle linebacker to enter Canton in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and has a Super Bowl trophy from 1969 with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Isn't that amazing, Big C? Not too many people focus on the HBCUs. You don't hear any of our broadcast experts talking about the Hall of Famers and the future Hall of Famers that are going around unnoticed in the HBCUs. But Big C Sports just brought that to you. It's all fair and love and war, and hopefully, just hopefully, a lot of those good players will get the chance to shine. They just need someone to pay attention to them. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause in the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger. We'll be back. All right, we're back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our sponsors from all over the world, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You know, I want to touch one more thing too. For all of these football players, Big C, that are about to have their lives, dreams come true in Cleveland, I wish everybody nothing but the best, Big C. Before we get into the NBA, I want to get Big C's thoughts. What would you want to say to those young players that are about to become multimillionaires, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a night that all your hard work come to fruition, Charlton. I mean, these guys have dreamed about this since they were little boys and first put on a pair of football pads.
Yeah.
But this is a great venture that you'll be going through. Just be prepared for it in every way.
Be prepared for it in every way. We wish you all nothing but the best. It's all fair and level war. I want to bounce the ball over to the NBA because NBA action is fantastic. We have a team that decided they wanted to already clinch a spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I want to start with the Oklahoma City Thunder, however, Big C. When you think about it, the Thunder were on the verge of making some unpleasant history. Lou Dort, Big C, when you think about it, Lou Dort made it his mission not to let that happen. He dropped 24 points. Darius Baisley added 21 points and 10 rebounds. And the Thunder, they snapped a 14-game skid, Big C, 119-115 win over the Boston Celtics on Tuesday night. Isaiah Roby and Ty Jerome each finished with 15 points for the Thunder, Big C, who won their first game since March 31st in Toronto, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about a 14-game skid, hopefully they had the laundry guys washing their uniforms and everything. That's an ugly scenario to go through in the NBA to go through that much fertility.
Yeah.
But to get off the snide, Charlton, they got to be happy about it.
Yeah, they got to be happy about it. NBA is a tough game, and sometimes people say, oh, those guys are throwing in the towel. It's not like Rocky where they throw in the towel. It's all fair and nevermore. But on the opposite spectrum, you got the NBA. You know, here's a guy that could be MVP, but sometimes they just don't play every game. The great Kevin Durant, Big C, dropping, think about this, 7 of his 17 points in the fourth quarter. Jeff Green added 22 points, and the Brooklyn Nets clinched a playoff spot on Tuesday night by rallying late to beat the Toronto Raptors 116-113. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a team that's in the position that everybody thought they'd be in at the start of the season, Charlton, winning the Eastern Division of the NBA, and now they've already secured a playoff spot. So now they can look forward to the playoffs.
They can look forward to the playoffs, Big C. Kyrie Irving finished with 9 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. 7 other Nets scored in double figures, Big C. The night Brooklyn became the first Eastern Conference team to lock up a playoff spot. And the amazing thing, they still did it without the big three on the court, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they haven't had the big three on the court basically all year long, Charlton, and I don't think that's what they rely on. When you talk about 10 other players other than Irving and Durant scored in double figures, that's what's going to be able to propel them deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to have to help them get deep into the playoffs. There's a lot of good teams in that Eastern Conference that wants to challenge them, and I know they're right there. No matter what we think about that team, when you think about what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets, Big C, they can win it, and they don't always have to have, show-stopping numbers from their star players. It's all fair and nevermore. I want to look at what happened last night in the Bay Area. So many people were excited to see the Golden State Warriors, the great Steph Curry taking on the Dallas Mavericks, and the great Luka Doncic. And just like the Dallas Mavericks were blown out the game before in Sacramento by the Sacramento Kings, the Golden State Warriors, people were expecting more last night, but something was off. It's like they were off the entire game, Big C. The great Luka Doncic dropped 39 points, and the short-handed Mavericks jumped on Golden State from the start, Big C. They dumped them to 133 to 103 on Tuesday night. People did not expect that, but it happens, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it did more than happen, Charlton. They came out there with an good old Texas butt-whooping last night in the Bay, Charlton. They sent the Warriors fishing, and they couldn't find anything. I mean, they held them to a paltry 29 points in the first half.
Yeah, they had them fishing on the dock of the bay. It's all fair level war. But when you think about it, the biggest game of the year, it was over before it started, said Kerr, who has his team kind of up and down at times. But they trouble as many as 43 points. You don't expect that out of Golden State. Tim Hardaway Jr. added 13 points, 7 rebounds off the bench as the Mavericks got 60 points from their reserves. Big C, it's like Golden State. Everybody's a reserve except Draymond Green and Curry. But you got 60 points from reserves from a team that lost to the Kings the week before, the day before. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's the key to the NBA, Charlton. Depth. You talked about that with the Nets, Charlton, getting 60, double digits from 5 guys that were not starters, and you got the same thing from the Mavericks, Charlton. When you're getting those bench points, that's what propels you late in the season in this playoffs, Charlton, because a lot of those starters, like Steph Curry, their legs get tired.
Yeah, their legs get tired. Speaking of Steph Curry, he dropped 27 points. He had 27 points with 5 more three-pointers, extending his NBA record for three-pointers in a month at 90 in April. Big C still counting. He had passed the great James Harden with 82 in November 2019. Did that on Sunday. It's not all about Curry. I know he's a marquee player. A lot of people had signs in the arena chasing to call MVP. At the same time, he's going to need some players that can play more consistent basketball. And I know no one's going to feel sorry for Golden State because they have those championships, 3 championships over the last 7 years, Big C. But they're going to need some more help. It can't just be Curry shooting the lights out, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you have to ask the guys to step up. You saw where Dallas had the bench step up. You saw New Jersey where the bench stepped up.
That's right.
Those guys sitting over there get paid, so they got to figure it out.
Yeah, they get paid, and they got to figure it out. I'm sure they'll bounce back in their next game, but that was just kind of disappointing to see a team that's right there hanging around that play-in tournament. But, you know, it can happen. It's all fair and level. Where I want to take a look at tonight's NBA games. The biggest one in town is going to be one I want to highlight a little bit later, Big C. You have Orlando at Cleveland, and no one cares because they're all getting ready for the NFL draft. Atlanta's at Philadelphia. That's a big game for Atlanta, and they're playing at Philadelphia. I don't know what they put in those Philly cheesesteaks, but they're hoping they don't find some hawk meat in it.
Well, you know, Philly should win this game. Trae Young is out with an ankle injury. If Philly doesn't win this, they could be in trouble going into the playoffs.
Yeah, they got to win that, and the referees know it. LA Lakers at Washington, Big C. The Charlotte is at Boston. Boston's also upside down at times, Big C. Chicago at the New York Knicks. Will they get back to another winning streak started, Big C? San Antonio's at Miami. Portland's at Memphis. New Orleans at Denver. Will the Joker show up in Denver, Big C? Will they bring some of those? What are those sweet things they get from New Orleans that makes everybody sleepy? Big, is it etouffee or something like that, Big C? Your thoughts?
That's called a soup. Beignets is what
Beignets,
everybody eats, y'all. A little short. The Joker will show up regardless of who you're playing.
Yeah, they're gonna. So maybe they should feed them first. Don't eat the food, Joker. Don't fall for it. LA Clippers at the Phoenix Suns. Utah at the Sacramento Kings. I want to take you to the Clippers and the Phoenix Suns. These teams are fighting out for Western Conference supremacy, Big C. They're either 1, 2, and 3 most of the season. It's a big game for the Clippers, but it's a bigger game for the Suns because they're at home. They got to turn up the heat on the Clippers, or will the Clippers go and turn off the heat down in Arizona, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Clippers are in chase mode, son. The Suns are, will be at least the second seed in the West. The Clippers are hoping to hang on to the 3 spot.
Yeah, they're looking to hang on to this 3 spot. And I know we talk about Denver. I think Denver will get bounced. I don't think they'll get to the Western Conference Finals. But the Jazz surely should get there or could get there. Don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers because you just don't know. There's always speculation. Will LeBron James come back? Will he be in basketball shape? We don't know. Will Anthony Davis stay healthy? Hasn't been healthy either of his career. No year ever has he ever been healthy start to finish. Even had a hitch in his giddy up in the NBA Finals last year. So when you look at, you got the Clippers, you got the Suns, you got Denver, and you got to say LA just because they're the defending NBA champions. Brooklyn just clinched. Does that mean anything to the teams in the West trying to, Brooklyn's going to have maybe home court advantage unless they have a team like Utah win out, Big C, your thoughts?
Doesn't mean that they're going to have home court advantage, Charlton. You clinch because you're in a lesser division win total-wise. That's the reason why Brooklyn is clinched, Charlton. But I would be more concerned about Utah and Denver in the West than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We'll see what happens. Can't wait to see the game tonight with the Suns and the Clippers. Also got the Hawks and the 76ers on my DVR, Big C. NBA news, we talked about the great LeBron James, Big C, missing some games. They're trying to get him back on the mend. LeBron James rookie card sells for a record-breaking $5.2 million, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's good to be king, Charlton, that you can control the bubblegum cards also.
Yeah.
But when we think about the money that's being tossed around off of the basketball court
Yeah.
and the playing fields these days,
Yep.
It's astronomical.
It's astronomical, Big C. LeBron James added a new crown to his collection on Monday, the most expensive basketball card of all time, according to PWCC Marketplace. A signed 2003 James Exquisite Collection patch card sold for a record-breaking $5.2 million in a private sale. It's good to be king, even though it missed the longest injury stretch of his Hall of Fame career. Somehow LeBron James still managed to rewrite the record books, and then knocking off the $4.6 million one of a 2018-2019 from Panini National Treasures, the great Luka Doncic's Logo Man RPA sold in March. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this shows what sports collectors are, Charlton. They want memorabilia, and they will drive up the price of it.
They will drive up the price of it, and it's all fair in love and war. I'm sure LeBron could use the extra money. It's, LA can be an expensive place to live. I want to go. The pitch. Hit deep. Right field. Back to the wall. Home run. Major League Baseball. Dodgers doing their thing. I know that's one of my favorite teams ever since I was a young boy. trying to get those good old boys from Cincinnati to get back in place. But I want to start Major League Baseball. Ian Anderson allowed 1 hit in 7 innings, Big C. The great Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a long home run. And the Atlanta Braves, who's been up and down at times, they beat the skinny Chicago Cubs 5-0 on Tuesday night. And boy, do they really need it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the Braves, this has been a hot and cold team the past couple of weeks, Charlton. But when their bats are right, they're right. Raul Acuna Jr., he's going to be in the MVP talks come the end of the season.
Well, maybe. But they got to keep winning. Sometimes they win, and other times you wonder, where's that team that can knock the lever off the ball? But we'll see what happens. Anderson 2-0, won his second consecutive start after throwing 6 2/3 innings shutout in the 4-1 win at Yankee Stadium last Wednesday. He walked only one Cub batter and struck out 8. So you can beat up the Yankees, you can beat up the Cubs, but you got to find a way to get to the top of the mountain in the NL. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they'll be there, Charlton. When you think about getting everybody healthy in the lineup, they have the reigning MVP and Freddie Freeman at first base. Raul Acuna, they expect for him to be a 40-40 man this year on the roster, Charlton, and that's going to raise havoc in the East.
It's going to raise havoc in the East. I really watch. I'm not going to equate him to Barry Bonds. I'm not going to equate him to Albert Pujols when he came up to the plate, Big C. But I like watching Acuna Jr. when he's coming up to bat. He just has a great swing. I think he's going to be a fabulous player, most likely a Hall of Famer, if he can just keep progressing and stay healthy, Big C. Major League Baseball, Christian Javier combined with 2 relievers and a 2-hitter, and the Houston Astros beat the Seattle Mariners 2-0 on Tuesday night to get above 500 as they bounce back from a long skid. Javier's now 3-0, allowed 2 hits in a career-high 7 innings, both by Kyle Sager, and struck out 6 and walked 3, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Dusty Baker's doing something right with this ball club, Charlton. Even those Major League fans are still ridiculing them from a couple of years ago about things that happened. The players are doing the right thing. They're going out on the mound and playing, Charlton, blocking out the minimal amount of fans that are in the stadium, and they're progressing and going to have another solid season.
Yeah, the great Dusty Baker. You know, everywhere Dusty's gone, it seems like they've won. When he was a manager with the San Francisco Giants, got them into winning many NL West titles, Big C, also got them into the World Series, and then had his chance to go to Chicago, got them into the playoffs, Big C, and they had I believe the player's name was, or the fan's name that caught a foul ball, and he took a lot of flack over it. Then the same thing in Cincinnati, got them in shape in the playoffs. Now he's doing his thing down in Houston. Wouldn't be too surprised to see them have success, and they just got to get over the hump, Big C. Major League Baseball, the great Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Big C, put on a power display that really, when you think about it, really impressed his Hall of Fame father. He hit 3 home runs, including a grand slam and a solo shot off Washington ace Max Scherzer, Big C, and had 7 RBIs as the Toronto Blue Jays. They beat the Nationals 9-5 on Tuesday night, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Vlad Jr. is one of the best up-and-coming young players in Major League Baseball, Charlton. He's in the American League what Raul Acuna Jr. is in the National League. These 2 young Dominican players, Charlton, are knocking the covers off the baseball.
Yep.
And I know his dad was smiling. His dad used to play with Montreal and the Angels, Charlton, and he's stepped right in his old man's footsteps.
Yeah, there's a lot of fathers that have sons that are stepping in. Tatis doing their thing. I remember the great Ken Griffey Jr. watching his son. You know, his father played, and then he came on and did his thing. Barry Bonds and his father, Bobby. It's all fair and love and war, Big C. Scherzer now 1-2. He joins Ian Nova, Big C, as the only pitcher to have allowed a homer to both Guerrero Jr. and his slugging father, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, father, son, and son, Charlton, teaming up on 2 different pitchers, Charlton, hitting home runs in their great careers, Charlton. I know they're going to put that baseball on the family mantle.
Yeah, they're going to put that on the family mantle. There's a lot of good history when a father and a son can play the same sport, just like Steph Curry and his father, Dell Curry, and also have a brother in the business, Doc Rivers and his son. So many lucky fortunes come together when that happens, Big C. I wish these guys nothing but the best. Also, Major League Baseball, the great Ryan McMahon and C.J. Crum hit back-to-back home runs in the 10th inning as the Colorado Rockies, they finally won on the road, beating the San Francisco Giants on the city by the dock of the bay. Big C 7-5 Tuesday night. The great Garrett Hampton also went deep for Colorado, and Charlie Blackmon also added 2 hits and 2 RBIs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they weren't getting any home cooking on the road until last night. You know that cannabis is free. I mean, not free, but legal in Colorado, Charlton, and they came to California where it was free also, so they were able to relax and launch a few out of the ballpark.
Yeah, whenever you go to the game at now Oracle Ballpark, I still love it calling it Pac Bell Park and AT&T Park. I was there when they opened the thing, the place that Barry Bonds built. If you don't eat everything that you buy, the seagulls will come and eat it up for you, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, they would end up on the barbecue grill depending on where you are, Charlton, because they had edible foul.
What do you think I came up with? The Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. It's all fair and level war, Big C. But the Rockies, they lost their first 7 away from Coors Field, but managed to buzz blackout. When you think about that, his ball club avoided joining the 2009 Washington Nationals and the 2006 Kansas City Royals and the 2003 Detroit Tigers as the only teams in the modern era to drop their first 8 road games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this was one that you need, Charlton. Any chance you get to stop a skid in Major League Baseball, you take it. And they slid into the Bay and stopped that skid.
Yeah, they slid into the Bay and stopped that skid. I still like what the Giants are doing there. I know they're in tough because they got to challenge everything that the Dodgers are doing down south. I think the Dodgers have won 8 divisions, NL West divisions in a row, Big C. And then you also have San Diego. They're doing their thing this year. And Arizona has a good pitch. And so now you got to worry about Colorado coming in and doing their thing. Tonight's baseball schedule, Major League Baseball, the Minnesota Twins at Cleveland, Big C. And, I mean, Cleveland, I feel bad for anybody that's not NFL related right now in Cleveland, Big C, because everybody's focused on what's going on with the NFL draft. I know they're all going to have a good time. You have the Miami Marlins at Milwaukee. And also, I'm not going to give out the scores, but the Dodgers tried to get some advance today over the Cincinnati Reds at Chavez Ravine. The Dodgers kind of getting, you know, they had that tough, emotional, I guess you could say, it's not really a rivalry yet, but it's starting to feel like it against the San Diego Padres, and they struggled a little bit out of the gate, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, all the teams in baseball, regardless of who you are, is a rivalry. Because your whole mission is to go out there and beat your opponent.
Yeah, the whole mission, Big C. Kansas City Royals at Pittsburgh. Boston at the New York Mets. I want to talk about Boston, the city of Boston, a little bit later, and beautiful Fenway Park, Big C. The New York Yankees at the Baltimore Orioles, Washington Nationals at the Toronto Blue Jays, the Oakland A's at Tampa Bay, Chicago Cubs at Atlanta, Big C, and I hear they're still trying to hit home runs down at Atlanta. You have Philadelphia at St. Louis, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim at Texas, Seattle's at Houston, talked about the great Dusty Baker doing his thing, San Diego at Arizona. Tatis has to be careful of the rattlesnake, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Tatis is known how to hop around there in the batter's box, Charlton. I think he's gotten better since he separated his shoulder. He's focused more on, you know, where the strike zone is.
Yeah, where the strike zone is, Big C. Colorado at San Francisco, the city by the dock of the bay. In Detroit at the Chicago White Sox. That game was postponed. But it's all fair in Leavenworth, Big C. You know, I want to touch on something that happened, and it's a good thing. And it's good to hear so many good things. I remember when the vote was happening in November, Big C, and so many professional sports teams, they opened up their stadiums and their arenas and their ballparks so that people could go out and vote. And now we have Republicans saying we don't like what everybody votes, Big C. But it's nice when sports teams and billionaire owners, they do things for people just because it's a good thing to do as opposed to saying get off my lawn. A team that did not say get off my lawn, Big C, when you think about it, Major League Baseball, throughout its storied history, the great Fenway Park is hosted football games, and we know they've had some great games in Boston, an outdoor NHL game, Big C, soccer games, the Harlem Globetrotters concerts. They have concerts, Big C, in Elephant Party in 1914, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's final campaign speech in 1944. In recent months, it served as a vaccination site for COVID-19, Big C, and now will host a series of high school graduations from June 7th to June 21st at the Great Fenway Park. And think about it, it's going to serve as the venue for 15 of 38 graduating classes across the Boston public school system. The Red Sox offered Fenway to all 38 schools, Big C, but many of them already had secured other outdoor venues across the city, and some of the smaller schools secured other suitable venues. They also had a Black Lives Matter poster on the outside of Fenway Park, a team that's been embroiled in some issues over the past with race and how they treated people, but now they're doing a good thing, even more, helping the schools, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a great public service to do an outreach to the high schools because so many kids have been affected by the pandemic and social distancing, Charlton, and losing a school year where they weren't able to go to school with their peers in person.
Yeah.
But to open up Fenway Park to give an opportunity for friends and families and siblings to come in and witness this event, Charlton, because you'll have enough space for social distancing. This is what professional organizations should always consider.
Yeah.
You're looking to recruit future fans by doing a venture like this. And for a lot of these kids, Charlton, it will be the first time that they've ever set foot inside of Fenway Park.
Isn't that amazing? It's a beautiful ballpark. It's old and rustic, but I like it that way. It's a great place to go and watch a baseball game, Big C, but they've also hosted other sports inside. Now they're going to host graduations for the school children in Boston Unified. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, NCAA. I know he's your friend, the great Mark Emmett, the president of the NCAA. His contract extended through 2025. Emmett, who served as the NCAA president since November of 2010, had been under contract through October of 2023 with an option through 2024. The NCAA announced the extension within a news release that included other action items that were on the board, including a commitment to modernize rules around name, image, and likeness, Big C. It's called the NIL, and Emmett's extension received unanimous approval from the board. He can't please everybody, but whenever you get an extension, you're pleasing somebody, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Mark Emmert's job is to make money for the NCAA, Charlton, and that's what he's been able to do throughout his tenure, and that's all that matters when it comes to those athletic directors and presidents of various universities, Charlton. He's not always worried about what the public insight is about him, Charlton. Yep. He's just there to do his job and not be a total PR person.
Yeah, not to be a total PR person. And I know you can't please everybody. It's like I heard a commercial way back in the day say, lead, follow, or get out of the way, but quit trying to please everybody. Everybody's always trying to hope that everyone can like them. Sometimes people don't even like themselves. You can't worry who likes you and who doesn't like you. It's all fair and love and war. I want to just say to all the college football players that are getting the chance tomorrow in the city of Cleveland, Big C, to be able to realize their dreams coming true. I don't know there's many young football players that at one time or another were not in their backyard pretending that they were catching the winning pass in a Super Bowl, Big C, or throwing the winning pass or making the sack that stopped the team from scoring in the backyard. Now they get a chance to do it in front of a live. It's live. I know we still have social distance, Big C, but again, what is it? What do you think they can come away from? Because not everybody's going to get what they want. We just ran down some of the great players that are Hall of Famers. They were not the first pick, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're not going to be but one first pick, and that's a far-gone conclusion. Who's going to be the first pick in the draft, Charlton? But there's going to be several players that have their dreams come true. There's going to be a couple of players that were unexpected to go in the first round.
Yeah.
They will end up in the first round, Charlton. But for what this is a life-changing experience. I'm a little pissed at them because I was born some 50 years too soon, Charlton, and they're making all the money now when we played for pennies back in the day.
Yeah.
But congratulations to all those young men through all the years of hard work and dedication. Congratulations to your parents for keeping you on the right path.
Yeah.
Who knows where your life would have ended up if you did not have those proper rearing parents in your life. So I always want to give kudos to the parents of these young men. I know coaches will get a lot of praise for how they develop them, but it started at home with good upbringing, Charlton.
With good upbringing, telling their kids to always rise and shine. And if there's ever a good movie that people can watch that kind of brings home what NFL football is like, or for any professional sports league, I know that people talk about Remember the Titans. I think about a movie that made me laugh about it. It was like North Dallas 40. And, the longest yard back in the day, even the Brian Piccolo, Gail Sears, Big C. What would be one of Big C's favorite football movies that made, Friday Night Lights, that's about the high school scene, but what's an NFL football movie that maybe you draw back on that might be more realism for some of these players that are about to become professional football players tomorrow? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I go back to Any Given Sunday, with Robert De Niro and Jamie Foxx in the movie, Charlton. When you think about that era of players and the realism that, exuded from that bar on and off the field, how the game, was evolving, Charlton. But, when you look at football, it's what an individual wants to take out of the game and that life experience. Everybody is not going to be same. Everybody's lifestyle and upbringing is not the same.
Yeah.
Everybody's career is not going to be successful. We all hope for the best and to stay healthy, but each person comes with risk.
Yeah, it really does. So everybody, whatever you're doing, just enjoy it. Enjoy your shining moment. Hopefully you'll have some family you can share it with, some parents that can say, I'm proud of you for not quitting. Everything you want in life is going to have some resistance. Even giving childbirth has resistance. It's all fair and love and war. I just wish everybody nothing but the best. I'm proud of the NFL for bringing this together again. They even did it last year during COVID. It was a little bit different. I know they're still going to have a little bit different setup this year, but I just hope that everybody can really enjoy it. And for all those young people, remember, it took hard work to get there. It's going to take hard work to stay there. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble, with all you've got to use. How can you lose, Big C? What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, as I look at the plight of the professional athletes playing tonight and those guys that are going to become new professional athletes tomorrow night, it all started with the guidance of your mother. When you think about she was there for every bit of encouragement in your life. Don't forget about her when you get on stage. Say thank you, Mom. Once again, I want to say thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They also had those great moms to guide them when they were young.
They had those great moms and great fathers. And don't forget about the dads. Dads had a part of it too, Big C. It's all fair level work. You can thank your mom and dad every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mama always said, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.